Hello and welcome to this first video about the Power BI interface. Now when you first open Power BI, you should see an interface which is kind of similar to that. Why do I say kind of? Well, the reason is that Power BI, in this case Microsoft's Power BI, is under constant development. That simply means that whenever you watch this video, it might be the case that there was a new version released which has a slightly different interface. However, don't worry, because I assure you that all the things we do, all the things we learn in the course, and all the formulas we create, this will all be up to date. And if not, then I assure you that I will update this in the near future. So, for now, what I like to do here in this first video is to give you a first tour through the Power BI interface. So, just lean back and follow me. So, the first time you open Power BI, you should see an interface which looks, as I said, kind of similar to this one. And the first thing, of course, is that we would like to import some data into Power BI. Now, for importing data, there are various data sources available to us. One of the most often used, of course, is something like Excel, so for people to start with Power BI. Now, if you like to import data, you have various options to do that. You could either click here on this new window here, which is Import Data from Excel. You could click on that, and you would see that a pop-up window appears, and then you can select a specific data source if you want. This would be one way to do it. There are additional ways. For instance, you could up here in the ribbon under Data here, under the Home menu, there's also Excel as a data source, or also other kind of data sources available here. You can click on it, and you'll see exactly the same window appearing, and you could also select your data source this way. Would also be possible. So let me close this here as well. And then the final way to do it is simply to go Get Data. So if you go to Get Data here, you also find here, at least at the beginning, the common data sources like Excel, like for instance SQL Server, so as a database, also Power BI datasets, data flows, and other kinds of things like text or CSV files. Also, you can connect to the web if you want. If these data sources are not enough for you, or you think something is missing here, you could always go here under More, and then you see that a new window appears. Just a second. And this new window here at Get Data contains all the different kinds of data sources you can connect to. So you'll see if I scroll down that there are various data sources available. So all kinds of databases, all kinds of other things for you. So I'm sure that you will find the specific data source you need. You also see that you can search for specific data source here to make your life a little bit easier, because you see there are a lot of choices here, and of course you want to choose a specific one, and if you don't want to search, simply type it here in the search box. Or you pre-filter. If you go to File, for instance, you can see all the file types here, like SharePoint folder, for instance, PDF, and so on. Or if you go to Database here, you would see all the databases available for you. So, as I said, a lot of data sources here, and also in the future, Power BI will add, or Microsoft will add, additional ones here as well. So in case yours is currently still missing, even though I probably don't think that, but if it's still missing, assure that Power BI is still continuing developing new data source connectors here. So let me cancel this for now. So these are the options to import data. So either click here, or you go up here where you can see common data sources like Excel, SQL Server, and so on, or you go to Get Data. Another way is here also the recent sources. You can click on this one if you want to use a source you have previously used in Power BI. If you have started Power BI the first time, then of course under recent sources you won't find anything. But if you have worked with a file or data source before, you can simply click here and then connect back to it. Other options under this Home menu, which could be interesting, is of course something you probably are familiar with from our other Power BI or Microsoft products, is simply the clipboard, where you can copy paste things, format things, and so on, right? Then next to the data pane, we have also here the queries. There we have the transformed data. If you hover over it, you also get a little preview what this actually does. It uses the Power Query editor to connect, prepare, and transform data. So this is a really, really powerful tool which is built in to Power BI desktop, which allows us to transform our data. So to clean it, to shape it in a way that we want to use it in order then to create our report. Because let's face it, most of the time the data we want to use is unfortunately not yet in the right format, and there are some cleaning steps to do for us. And this is where this transformed data, or the so-called Power Query editor, comes into place and allow us to shape our data, to prepare the data, and so on. The refresh option, which is currently grayed out simply because I do not have loaded any data yet, is simply exactly what it does. You click on it and then you can refresh. Just in case your underlying data source in the meantime changes and you click on the refresh button, then you'll see the up-to-date data, so the latest data. Under this insert here, we have the option to insert a new visual. This will be interesting, of course, when we create our report, because we want to create certain visuals like pie charts, like bar charts, and so on. So various options for us. And if you click here, a new visual simply would appear on the screen. So if I click this, what you see is you see a template here. The template now, of course, needs some data. But this is one way how you can create a new visual. If I click on it one more time and delete it, then I see my original window back. Now, beside clicking here on new visual, you could also go onto the right section here, we can see here, which is the visualizations pane. And here you can see all the different kinds of visuals which are available by default for Power BI. So line charts, bar charts, stacked bar charts, and so on. Maps, if you want to do this as well as here some additional AI charts, and also very interesting, we'll cover this in the course as well, and other kinds of things. Even tables, if you need them, of course, right? So next to that, if the visual you want to use, you do not find it here, because the default ones are not enough for you, you still have another option if you go to the 3 dots here. The 3 dots is the Get More Visuals. So this option, if you click here, you can get to Get More Visuals, and if you do this and click this, you will be prompted with a new window here, which is the app source. The app source here allows you, if I scroll down here, to add additional visualizations which are available for Power BI. You can download them for free. Some of them have built-in functionalities which you have to pay for, but some of them are free. A lot of them are free, actually. And you can use those as well. And if you go to all here, you will see that there are a lot of them for you available. If I scroll up and down. And all you need to do is you need to click to a specific visual. For instance, if I click on bullet chart here, if I click on add, what you see is that the import visual successful, click OK, and you see basically here down there this new bullet chart, which is now also available as visualization. So I can click on this, and you can see I get again my template here, and now of course I need to fill it some data. So let me actually close this or remove it again, but this is one way to get additional visualizations here. So for the visual section here, for this app source, I like to highlight one important aspect. Currently what Power BI requires to do this is a login to Power BI. And you can't only log in or register to Power BI if you have a working email address. You can't do it currently with your private email address. This is something you need to be aware of, okay? Just wanted to mention that. Now let's actually explore a little bit more here. Under the next option here, calculations, we have new measures as well as quick measures. Now this is where the power of Power BI, so-called the calculations, come into play. This is how we can create our DAX calculations. DAX is the formula engine, formula language in Power BI. It's kind of similar to Excel, a little bit different, but this is actually how we can create our own calculations in Power BI. And we will do a lot of them during the course. The quick measure is another option which allows you to, by only dragging and dropping fields inside, create measures in DAX. However, it's highly recommended that you learn DAX. Because if you learn DAX and you're able to write your own DAX calculations, then you can create exactly those calculations you need at the end of the day to create the insights you want in your report. The next thing here is the share option, also currently grayed out, simply because I don't have any data loaded. Sharing would simply mean that you publish your report then either to the cloud, so Power BI service, or if you are in a company and you have your own Power BI report server, then you can publish it to this report server on-premise. Now, the sharing option here is also powerful, but be aware that here you need, of course, to register to Power BI first in order to be able to publish the report. So this is it for the home menu here. Now let's go under Insert here, on the next one. In Insert here, you can see additional things which you already have seen, like new visual here. Another way how you can simply click on it and you see that the new visual, so basically this template appears, which now needs some data in order to visualize something. So you see a little bit of what I call redundancy in Power BI. So simply that means there are several ways to do exactly the same thing. So again, I press my delete button to delete it. And under more visuals, you see exactly, if I click on it, from app source, which is exactly the same as clicking on the 3 dots, which we have done here. Get more visuals is exactly the same here as well as here. By the way, you can also import them from files. If you download it from app source first to your local computer, then you can also click on from files, and then you would import it from the specific location where you have saved it. It's also possible. Here the AI visuals are Q&A, for instance, key influences, decomposition tree, and smart narrative. And we'll cover some of them during the course, but be aware that these visuals, which you can see here, are also available in our visualizations pane here. And that is why during the course and later, I will use this pane when I create visualizations. I won't do it here from the ribbon bar. Either though, you can also do it from there. So smart narrative, for instance, you can see this here. If you hover over it, you get some additional insights, what this does for you. But if you take a look at under the visualizations on this option here, you see it's exactly the same. So those two are exactly the same. The same is true for Power Apps. If you want to import a Power Apps visualization within Power BI, that's also possible, but this is also available up there. So several ways to do exactly the same thing. Under Elements, there you have the option to import additional elements, like for instance, you click on text box here, and then this allows you to enter some text, right? So you click on it, and you could say, hello, Power BI, like that. And I can highlight this, and of course I can adjust here the different kinds of fonts I have. Arial, for instance, I can make it bold. I can also increase the size here, like that. And I can specify, do I want to center it? Then I can go in here. Do I want to underline it? And so on. So these you're probably familiar with from, for instance, PowerPoint, any other kind of things. And if you have this, then of course you can make this visual smaller, and then you can simply drag and drop it around somewhere on your screen. And you might see that if you drag and drop it here, then you also got these little red dot lines, which are the helper lines. So this is something you're probably familiar with from PowerPoint, which is a real big help. So because this also allows you to then simply align the visuals you have, for instance, this text box here, onto your report. What you also notice is probably that if you have a visual, if you click on a specific visual, then additional tabs here might appear. Depending on the visual, you would see different kinds of tabs appearing here. If I untick it, you see that, just a second, let me remove this. If I untick this here, you see that those two tabs are gone. If I click on it one more time, you see that now the format and the data drill here appears again. And you see additional things. If I go to format here, you see certain things you also are probably familiar with from PowerPoint. Like for instance, do I want to bring this forward or bring to front? Do I want it to send backward or send to back? Or do I want to align it, right? Align left, align center, align right, and so on. So all these options are also available in PowerPoint, which is great because this simply means that it's easier if you have a PowerPoint background, you have worked with it before, it's easier to work with Power BI as well. Because what Microsoft tries to do is it tries to create similarities between their products. So it's easier for people who have already knowledge in one product simply to use the new product as well. So always click on a specific visual and then check out what's also available here. For instance, these options as we have here. The grouping is currently grayed out, but this allows us, we will also do this during the course, to group certain visuals together and then apply certain things. For instance, drag them together on the screen and so on. Data drill here gives you additional informations. The drill through, something we cover later on, but for now, that's not that important. You can also see that most of these things are grayed out currently. So, what else do we have? We were on an insert here, and we covered those things, like for instance these things. Text box I used, I showed you, but also you can create buttons here. If you go to buttons, you have a left, right, reset, and so on. So different kinds of buttons, which you can also implement in your report. So how are they helpful? Let's say, as you can see down there, I have a page 1 currently. If I click on another page, I can see here I have a complete new page. And let me maybe add some text box here and say this is page number 2, okay? Like this is page number 2. So also let me make this maybe a little bit bigger here, and also maybe adjust here to, let's say, maybe area black. That's fine. So let me just place it somewhere, just to have a difference between our two pages. And by the way, you can create additional pages here if you want. But the idea here behind those buttons could be, because there's several of them, but there's also a back button. And the back button would allow simply to jump between those two report pages for your end consumer, right? So if I go to page number 2 here, for instance, and I say I want to insert a button, and I simply click on back button here, then I have a back button here, and if I go back to page number 1, and then I jump to page number 2 here, and then I would go hover over the button, and here press Control click, I simply jump back to page number 1, right? And by the way, I said if you hover over this, you also see this, I need to hold my Control key and click. This is only necessary as long as you are in Power BI desktop. As soon as you publish your report, to make it available for your audience, so for the world or for people in your organization, then of course they would only click on the button. They don't have to hold the Control key. This is simply in the developer here inside here. Okay. But this is one way how we can use those buttons. And there are various buttons available for you, and you can also adjust or add specific actions to a specific button. So even though I have a back button here, and it's normally used for jumping back to the page you were before, you could also add an additional functionality or a different functionality to this button. It's also available here. Okay. So under shapes, you find then additional shapes you can insert, a rectangle if you need it. Now you have a rectangle here, which you can also drag and drop and place somewhere on your screen, right? And also align this if you want, for instance, here next to our headline here. And image, as it says, if you click on it, then you simply need to specify a specific image path, and then you simply click the specific image, and you can import an image into your report as well. So, for instance, you would like to have a background image for your report, or simply want to insert your logo, then you simply click on image here, and jump to a specific image, for instance, your company logo, and then place it maybe in the top right, or wherever you want to place it in your report. So this is it under elements. Then the next is then the modeling tab here. The modeling tab allows us here to create additional calculations, as you can see here, like new measures, quick measures, or also new columns. This is if we have imported a table, we can also not only create complete new measures, we can also add additional columns to a specific table we have. Or we can go to new table. This is the only one which is currently available, with even if you don't have any data, because this new table, if you click on it, it simply allows you, just working on it, just a second, here to create a complete new table in Power BI, based again on DAX calculations, if you want to do that. Let me actually press delete here, because for now we don't want to do that. But this is also available here under new table here. Then here, page refresh, you can go with the change detections if you want to do that. So if the data has changed, if something has changed, you can play around with that. New parameter, this is something we also covered during the course. So this allows us, as you can see here, it's specified as what if. So it allows us to use this parameter and then give the end consumer an option to, for instance, use a slider, anything like that, to change specific numbers, and based on his or her selection, then a specific visualization might change. This could be interesting, for instance, if, let's say, a what-if scenario, and you say, what if my sales, for instance, or what if my prices increase 5%? What does this mean for my sales? So if you have this kind of scenario, you can use a slider here, place it in your report, and then use the slider, or the end consumer can use the slider then to adjust the parameters, and then you'll see what happens to the visualizations. That could be a use case for that. Under security here, you find manage roles as well as view as. Now, this is helpful when it comes to security, because let's say you create a report in Power BI, but at the end of the day, you have sensitive data, and you don't want everyone to see this data. Now, then you can create roles under this manage roles, and these roles allow you to create security. For instance, that my colleagues in India should only see Indian data. My colleagues in the United States should only see US data. So this is something as a security which is actually built into Power BI. So we built this for using DAX measures and other kinds of options here, using this manage roles option here. And the view as a second is one way to then use a role which we have created and just take a look at the report, what the report would look like for this specific role. Because if you create certain roles, like as we said, for Indian colleagues, for US colleagues, for other kinds of colleagues, then you want to make sure that this actually works, the security. And that is why you have this view as, and you can click on this and then choose someone you have added to the US role, or choose the US role, and then just see what this report would look like if for someone who has only access to US data. So that's why this exists. And then under the Q&A, you have additional options to adjust the Q&A, which is an AI feature, so to train it a little bit. So if you use a Q&A feature, we will do this also, cover this later, but if you use this, then if someone, for instance, names or specifies a certain object, then you can attach this object to something you have in your report, so specific data. So you can train, in a way, Power BI to match certain words which your end consumer use to specific data you have. That is that behind the Q&A option here. Okay, so under view here, if I go here, you see that there are different kinds of themes for Power BI which are available for us, which you can use by default. So if you click on this, you see currently this theme is used, but there are additional themes here, which you can use here as well. And you can also browse for themes or take a look at the themes gallery, which is also available or provided by the Power BI community. So a lot of themes, additional themes out there, which are also, most of them, at least from my point of view, are for free, so you can use them as well. Or you take the theme you currently have and go to Customize Current Theme. So if you do this, click on this, then you see this is the current theme we have, and then you can adjust the colors here. So if you click on this one, you can here either use a hex code or RGB values to specify the colors you want to use. This is also an option how you can actually implement your own corporate identity in Power BI if you want. And you see that there are a lot of options, like what kind of text here, what the font size do I want, what font size, what font kind of font, what font color, and so on, and also for which one. So for the titles, a specific thing, for the cards and KPIs, something else, for the tab header, something else. So this can all specified, right? The way you want it. For the visuals, the background, the border, header, and so on. So I just want to encourage you, if you want to really do something customized to your specific needs, a theme, you can try out this one. So just use a basic theme and then customize it to your needs. Could be one option. Or the other option is that you create your complete own theme from scratch. That's also possible. And if you want to do this, go to Themes option here and then take a look at how to create a theme. So this gives you additional insights and hints from Power BI, help from Power BI in this case, which allows you to create your own custom theme, just in case you don't like the themes which are here already available for default for you. So that is that. Under page view, if you click on this, you can actually adjust here, fit to size and so on. You see that now the view adjusts a little bit. Actual size, you can see it like that, and so on. So various options how you can then specify the page view here. Mobile layout is also available. So if you click on this option here, then you see a little, mobile phone here in the background, and there you can adjust what kind of visuals you want to have in your mobile view. So you don't need to use all the visuals in your report. You could only use certain of them, and you can also the order and so on. So you can make a different kinds of mobile view from your original page report. And the way it would work is simply that you use something like this one and drag it inside. Like for instance, I only currently have the shape which we have created as well as the header. So I can use my header here and drag this inside and also make it bigger in there like that, and simply drag it and place it somewhere on my mobile device. And this is then I choose the next one here and drag it maybe below, right? So this is how that works. You simply drag and drop the things inside. Currently we do not have much visualizations, I know, but just to give you really the way it works. It's pretty easy. Simply choose the specific visualizations you have in your report and drag and drop it here in the mobile view. And so you can customize it, and it could look different from your original report. If you want to get rid of something, simply click on this just to remove it. And then let me actually tick this one more time, switch back to desktop layout, and we can see our original report again. The page options here are also something you probably might be familiar with. So if I tick on grid lines here, I can see grid lines. If I say log objects, here I would log the objects. Also, if you do not know exactly what this does, see hover over something and you get additional details for that. Under the show panes, you can specify what kind of panes do you want to show. Currently the filter pane is selected. That is why you can see, for instance, here, if I make this bigger, this kind of filter pane, which allows you to filter your specific report based on certain criteria. If I untick this, you will see that now the filter pane is gone. Also an option, because when you publish your report, you can specify whether you want your end consumer to see this filter pane or not. And the same is true for all the other panes here. So if you tick this, then the window appears and you have the bookmarks. Also something we cover later. Selection, same is true. Click on it and you can see the selection. Performance Analyzer could be helpful in case your Power BI report is slow and you want to simply tweak the performance, or at least figure out where the issue lies. Then this is something you can try out and just see what kind of visualizations are the slowest ones and why that's the case. So if you want to dive into this deeper, this could be helpful. Also in combination with the DAX Studio, which is also an extension for Power BI, an external tool. Sync slicers simply means do you want to sync your slicers during for different pages. So for instance, if I select here a specific country and all my data filters to this country, what if I want to have the same filter applied to page number 2 of my report? Then I can use the sync slicer option just to make sure that the filter I select here is applied to all my pages, or only specific pages. Could also be the case. So that's it under the view. Under help, you find simply additional informations, like what is the current Power BI version you use, training videos, documentation, support, blogs, communities, and so on. So most of this is self-explanatory, I guess. But in case you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. The external tools section here allows you to add additional functionalities, so external tools to Power BI. The default ones for me now is DAX Studio and Tabular Editor. You would have to install those softwares first, otherwise you can't see it in Power BI. But this allows you to do additional things. For instance, DAX Studio is great for improving or take a look at the performance of your report and where the issue is to figure that out. Tabular Editor is another great tool, which I covered in another course, which I've also published, which allow us to do some scripting in Power BI, which at the end of the day might, well, increase or reduce the time how we spend creating the report, because it allows us by the scripting to reduce certain kinds of things to reduce redundancy, and so we avoid doing certain things several times. Instead, we're only doing one time and then using the script and apply it immediately. So one great functionality of Tabular Editor are, for instance, calculation groups. But that's it for now. You don't need to remember that. If you're interested, try out or ask me, come back to me, and we can talk about that. So let's go back to home. But this is actually what you can find under these default settings here. And as I said, if you click on a specific visual, keep this in mind that there might be the case that there are additional tabs here which give us additional functionality specific for the kind of visual we select. For instance, you can see here, if I select this visual, then also here on the side, this pane changes here. So if I untick it, you see that I can see my visualizations as well up here. I can add values and so on. So this is actually here the data pane. But also, if I tick this here, you will see that this changes, and this allows me now to customize this here. So for instance, I have a line, I have a blue line. I can switch it here to a darker blue, and you'll see this changes immediately. I can play around with transparency, with the weight, with the round edges, with the fill. Do I want to fill the color here? So make it, for instance, also this blue, and so on. So this pane here, the formatting here, allows us to really customize exactly the visual we have. Currently we only have a box here, a rectangle, but of course it will also work for other kind of visuals, right? So always check, if you select something, what's there on the visualizations, or in this case in this pane, which allow us to customize the specific visual the way we want it. So that is that. And next here, one more thing is currently all we have covered is on the report view. If I hover that, you can see this is report. But there are two other kinds of views, which is the data view as well as the model view. Now, the data view itself, if you click on this one, currently it's empty, would show you simply a table. And we'll cover this in the next couple of videos. So you will see here the data itself, which you've imported in Power BI as a table structure here. And you can switch between the different kinds of tables just to see what the data looks like. And the last one here, which is the model view, this is really, really powerful, because this model view allows us to combine data. So this is kind of, if you have only an Excel background and you don't know what joins are, then think about like VLOOKUPs. Or if you have some database knowledge and you know what joins are, this is where we can connect tables. So let's say we have one table which contains our sales data, and then we have another table which contains all the product data. And we want to combine this because we want to give no additional information, because our sales table maybe only consists of the sales itself and then the product ID. And then we can link this product ID to our product table just to get some additional information. We will also do this during the course. But this is where you can create your data model. So connecting tables to one big model, and then use this model and explore this model, combine different kinds of data, maybe also from different kinds of data sources, could also be the case, but just combine them in a way how it works for you and how it is useful, and then use this complete data model in Power BI to create your reports based on this data model. We will also cover a little bit more about the model view in later videos, because model view is really, really powerful. But for now, just keep in mind that this is where the magic happens, where we can combine tables if they have some kind of common field, which we can use to link them and develop our, in this case, our model structure. So, okay. So that's it actually for a first tour into Power BI. I know this was a lot, but please be aware this is only just a little tour just to introduce yourself to the interface itself, but we will cover all of these features in the next couple of videos. So that's it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best.